If you haven't heard of Shein, where have you been for the last 3 years? This fast fashion brand has since 2021 absolutely dominated the online fashion landscape with social media hauls and hashtags. They've expanded their footprint enormously over such a short period of time, with something like over 69.8 billion views on TikTok. But the surge in popularity was met with substantial backlash against Shein's business practices. A 2022 Public Eye report revealed that Shein workers were earning as little as 4 cents per item and working 75-hour weeks in conditions. Social media users and activists launched campaigns like #BoycottShein, which garnered millions of mentions, amplifying calls for accountability due to its environmental and labor practices, gaining significant traction on platforms such as X and Instagram. Shein also faced major criticism for a paid influencer trip to one of its factories, failed PR stunt. And while influencers reported positive experiences, online commentators pointed out that the visit was limited to literally one factory out of thousands. With all that said, what impact did all that backlash have on this ultra-fast, real-time fashion brand's meteoric rise? Hello everybody, I'm Lal and welcome back to Sustainable Jungle, where we share sustainability tips, tricks, hacks, products, brands, and stories to better our planet, hopefully. And today we're talking about the infamous powerhouse of a fast fashion brand known as Shein. But before we uncover their less than sustainable business model and where they are today, let's dig into the background to really get a sense of who they are and how they got here. So who is Shein? Well, they're a Chinese online fast fashion retailer. They were founded in 2008 by Chris Chu, initially focused on wedding dresses. The company quickly expanded to offer a wide range of trendy, super low cost apparel. How about a pair of jeans for a sushi roll? The brand's aggressive marketing and ability to churn out ultra accelerated fashion trends and styles have propelled it to the forefront of the fashion industry, making it a favorite among Gen Z consumers. Okay, not exactly different from your other fast fashion behemoths. So how has Shein actually changed fast fashion then? Well, they've revolutionized it by introducing not so much the concept of ultra fast fashion, but actually real-time fashion. What does that mean exactly? Well, think of the traditional fashion cycles that involve 4 seasons. Shein operates on an insane cycle, churning out 2,000 to 10,000 individual styles every single day. How the hell do they do that, you ask? Good question. Through the use of AI by modeling advanced data analytics that tracks and scrapes emerging trends on social media, consumer behavior, and Google searches in real time. This real-time data allows Shein to produce small batches of new styles almost instantaneously. The approach is a game changer for a fashion brand trying to preempt trends and styles, as its agility not only meets consumer demand for constant novelty, but also minimizes unsold inventory, which minimizes waste, which maximizes shareholder profits, which is great and all for Shein and its shareholders, but only adds fuel to a culture of disposable fashion where consumers are encouraged to purchase frequently and discard quickly. And how exactly does that square up with the planet we live on? Not so well. Shein's ultra-fast production cycle has obviously severe repercussions for the environment. The brand's reliance on cheap synthetic fabrics like polyester, nylon, and acrylic are made from, of course, fossil fuels, which results in a plethora of issues, from high carbon emissions from extraction and production to microplastics, which, as you know, make their way into the oceans, harming marine life and entering the food chain that we're very much a part of. In fact, a study by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, estimated that about 35% of microplastics in the ocean come from synthetic textiles. And the production of synthetic fabrics from dyeing processes are also water intensive. The United Nations Environment Program reports that the fashion industry is the second largest consumer of water globally. Additionally, these processes often lead to water pollution, with harmful chemicals from dyes and finishes entering water bodies and affecting aquatic ecosystems. And the rapid turnover of clothing ultimately encourages a culture of disposability. Many garments are only worn a few times before being discarded because, hey, there's a new style on sale, 50% off till tomorrow, ultimately leading to significant textile waste generation, contributing to landfill overflow. And did I mention the energy intensive nature of manufacturing synthetic fabrics and the high volume of production required to keep up with fast fashion trends? All this is to say that the environmental fallout from any fast fashion brand is bad, but Shein throws lighter fluid on the problem, tosses a match, and walks away like John McClane from a Die Hard sequel. But what about labor? Surely that can't be as bad, right? Remember that quote by Lucy Siegel, fast fashion is not free, someone, somewhere is paying the price? Well, this about sums up Shein's policies. Their low prices are a case in point. Reports from various organizations, including the Worker Rights Consortium, highlight alarming working conditions in factories producing for Shein. Workers often endure long hours, unsafe environments, and meager wages. A 2022 investigation by Swiss advocacy group Public Eye revealed that some Shein workers are paid as little as 4 cents per item, and they work up to 75 hours a week in substandard conditions. The investigation found that these workers face extreme pressure to meet high production quotas, with some required to produce up to 500 items per day. Now, this intense workload often results in workers having zero time out. The report also highlighted that workers are often penalized for mistakes, and they are fined, and that can amount to 2/3 of their daily wages. And further investigations by media outlets like Channel 4 corroborated these findings, revealing that workers in Shein's supply chain frequently work 7 days a week, with shifts lasting up to 18 hours. The poor working conditions are then compounded by inadequate safety measures, with reports of unsafe environments and a lack of proper protective equipment. And unlike many other fashion brands, Shein does not publicly disclose information about its factory locations or labor practices, which ensures a lack of transparency in Shein's supply chain, making it almost impossible to address these labor issues. All that is to say, these exploitative labor practices underscore the hidden costs behind Shein's low prices. The affordability and variety offered by Shein is only matched by the level at which they're taking advantage of their human capital. But we're not done yet with the trailblazing. Oh no. Because recent reports have also found high levels of toxic chemicals in Shein's clothing, adding to the brand's already troubling environmental and health impacts. A 2021 investigation by Greenpeace revealed that some of Shein's products contain hazardous levels of chemicals such as lead, phthalates, and per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, aka PFAS, all of which pose significant health risks to consumers, including developmental problems in children to hormonal disruptions and reproductive harm. And speaking of, South Korea recently found 7 out of 8 children's leather goods tested positive for harmful chemicals, get this, some of which had phthalate additives at levels 428 times higher than domestic safety standards. 428. Further investigations by other organizations and health departments around the world have also found widespread presence of hazardous chemicals in Shein's products. Of course, in Shein's defense, okay, they're not the only fast fashion brand guilty of this. All this adds just yet another layer of concern to Shein's business practices, not just in terms of these chemicals leaching into the water supply, contributing to water pollution and affecting aquatic life, but also the direct health impacts on consumers who are literally wearing their clothing against their skin. I mean, all that it's pretty damning, isn't it? So now can we say that Shein is cancelled? Like, really cancelled? You'd be forgiven for thinking yes. And in an ideal world, that should be the correct answer. But the reality is Shein is still alive and kicking big time. Despite all the social backlash, the negative PR, the condemning reports, the incriminating evidence, Shein have continued to experience ridiculous, sickening growth. The company's revenue increased by something like 43% from 22.7 billion in 2022 to over 32 billion in 2023. And this growth is set to continue. Shein's projecting now 58.5 billion by the end of 2025. And beyond the earnings, Shein's follower base sees a similar trajectory. In 2021, Shein had, it was about 20 million followers on Instagram, and they reached nearly 30 by the end of 2023. The company today has an estimated 88.8 million active shoppers, and 17.3 million of those are in the US alone. Their app also was the most downloaded fashion app in 2023, something like 238 million downloads globally. So where do you go from here? Because the way I see it is that even if you're not someone, say, taking active steps to minimize your footprint, maybe you're just vaguely aware of the state of things, then these stats, the unmitigated growth, is still surely concerning for you. And if you do fall into that bucket, and FYI, 65% of Gen Zers say they want to shop sustainably, then my question is, would you still shop at Shein? Would you still buy their products because they're cheap and on trend, even if you knew what kind of an impact that was contributing to? As in, would you choose yourself or would you choose the collective? I think it's as simple as that. Because either you have no idea that Shein equals a disaster for people and planet, you missed the memo. Which is possible, but unlikely. Or you do know, and you just don't care enough to not shop at Shein. I don't know how else to cut this cake. But what is clear is that cancel culture, the negative PR, the damning reports have not been enough to curb the support for this behemoth. There is a huge disconnect between what people say is important to them and what they actually do. And who's at fault? Is it us consumers who are, completely to blame? Or are there more factors at play? Could we also point fingers at Shein, that they nefariously tap into the human psyche through the use of social media as a tool of instant signaling to our peers that we have the latest getup, that we're important and cool and deserve to be followed? When you weigh up our need to be seen versus our desire to do the right thing, especially if that thing is not directly impacting us, well, we seem to choose the former. Consumer psychology is being strategically leveraged to influence our buying decisions. And look, that is a whole video series in its own right. It is worth saying that Shein is not the only one taking advantage here. Like Temu, they're just really, really good at it. And they're a glaring example of why this model of ultra real-time fast fashion is unsustainable. The environmental footprint, coupled with terrible labor practices, the cheap throwaway products made in a chemical soup, it just underscores the urgent need for change in the fashion industry. But if we can't do it, if the average consumer does not have enough self-control over their own buying decisions, then who will? Well, it might fall to governments to take a stand. The French, for example, has taken a proactive stance against Shein and similar fast fashion brands by introducing a proposed fast fashion tax, which is part of a bill that imposes financial penalties on brands introducing over 1,000 new items daily. They're also calling for an investigation into Shein's environmental impact, consumer protection issues, and the social conditions under which their products are made. Similarly, in Australia, there is increasing scrutiny over the environmental and labor practices associated with ultra-fast fashion brands. Australian authorities are also urging for stricter regulations against brands like Shein to ensure compliance with sustainable and ethical standards within the industry. And this kind of policy level action is probably what's going to be needed to actually stem the growth. And that's it. So what's the takeaway here? Well, you can tell someone not to shop at Shein, but regardless of the stats, reports, facts, shaming, etc. that you reference, it's probably not going to change their habits. At least not at scale. I mean, I'm still going to do it. I'm just not going to expect people to just do what I say. Because what's the alternative? We say nothing, we do nothing? Well, that's not an option. Oh, and I'll also be supporting any and all government action to crack down on fast fashion. Now, I would love to know your thoughts. What do you think about Shein? Who is to blame for their continued growth and success? And what do you think we can do as consumers to stop or slow this runaway train? Please let me know in the comments below. I'll add links to all the resources and data I mentioned. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like button, notification buttons, all the buttons, if sustainable living is your thing. I'm Lal from SJ. Much love and slow fashion always.